everybody. Today we are going to be reading The Wings of Fire, the Dragonet Prophecy. 6 years later, Chapter 1. Clay didn't think he was the right dragon for a big heroic destiny. Oh, he wanted to be. He wanted to be the great mudwing savior of the dragon world, glorious and brave. He wanted to do all the wonderful things expected of him. He wanted to look at the world, figure out what was broken, and fix it. Our equalities at all. He liked sleeping more than studying, and he kept losing chickens in the cage during hunting practice because he was paying attention to his friends instead of watching for feathers. He was all right at fighting, but all right wasn't going to stop the war and save the dragon tribes. He needed to be extraordinary. He was the biggest dragon, so he was supposed to be the scary, tough one. The minders wanted him to be terrifyingly dangerous. Clay felt about as dangerous as a cauliflower. Fight! His attacker howled, flinging him across the cavern. Clay crashed into the rock and scrambled up again, trying to spread his mud-colored wings for balance. Red talons raked at his face, and he ducked away. "Come on," the red dragon snarled. "Stop holding back. Find the killer inside you and let it out." "I'm trying," Clay said. "Maybe if we could stop and talk about it." She lunged for him again. She fent to the left. "Roll right. Use your fire." Clay tried to duck under a wing to attack her from below. But, of course, he rolled the wrong way. One of her talons smashed into the ground and he yelped with pain. "Which left was that? Useless." Kestrel bellowed in his ear. "Are all mudwings this stupid, or are you just deaf?" "Well, if you keep that up, I will be soon," Clay thought. The skywing lifted her claws and he wriggled free. "I don't know about the other mudwings," he protested, licking his sore talons. "Obviously, but perhaps we could try fighting all the shouting and see." He stopped hearing the familiar hiss that came from one of Crystal's fire attacks. He threw his wings over his head and tucked his long neck in, and he rolled into the maze of stalagmites that studded one in the corner of the cave. Flames blasted the rocks around him, singing to the tip of his tail. "Coward!" the old dragon bellowed, smashed one of the rock's columns into a shower of sharp black pebbles. Clay covered his eyes and almost immediately felt her stamp down hard on his tail. "Ow!" he yelled. "You said stop me on tails was cheating." He seized the closest stalagmite between his claws and scrabbled up on top of it. From his perch near the roof, he glared down at his guardian. "I am your teacher," Crystal snarled. "Nothing I do is cheating. Get down here and fight like a skywing." "But I'm not a skywing," Clay thought rebelliously. "I'm a mudwing, and I don't like setting things on fire, flapping around in circles, biting at dragon nuts." His teeth still ached from Crystal's jewel-hard scales. "Can I find one of the others?" he asked. "I'm much better at that. The other dragons were his own size." "Nearly," parentheses, "and they didn't cheat," parentheses. "Well, most of the time. He actually liked fighting with them." "Oh, yes. Which opponent would you prefer? Stunned Sandwing or the lazy Rainwing?" Crystal said. "Because I'm sure you'll get to choose out on the battlefield." Tail glowed like embers. She lashed back and forth. "Glory's not lazy," Clay said loyally. "She's just not built for fighting, that's all." Webb says there's not much to fight about in the rainforest because Rainwings have all the food they want. He says that why they've stayed out of the war so far because none of the rival queens want Rainwings in their armies anyways, he says. "Stop yammering, get down here," Crystal roared. She reared up on her back legs and fluttered her wings, because she suddenly looked 3 times bigger. With a yelp of alarm, Clay tried to leap to the next stalagmite, but his wings veered too slowly. He smacked in the side of it instead. Sparks flew out as his claws scraped down the jagged rock. He let out another yell of pain as Crystal slipped her hand between the columns, seized his tail in her teeth, and yanked him out into the open. Her talons closed around his neck, and as she hissed in his ear, Where's the violent little monster I saw when you hatched? That's the dragon we need for the prophecy. Group, Clay squawked, clawing at her grip. He could feel the strange burn scars on her palms scraping against his scale. This is how battle training was with Crystal. Always ended. With him unconscious and then sore limping for days afterward. Fight back, he thought. Get mad. Do something. But although he was the biggest of the dragonets, they were still a year away from being full grown, and Crystal towered over him. He tried to summon some helpful violent rage, but all he could think was, I'll be over soon and then I can go have dinner. So not the most heroic train of thought. Suddenly Crystal let out a roar and dropped him. Fire blasted over Clay's head as it hit the floor with a thud. The red dragon whirled around behind her, panting definitely. It was the deceiving dragonet Tsunami. A red gold scale was caught between her sharp white teeth, spat out and glared at their teacher. Stop picking on Clay, Tsunami growled, or I'll bite you again. Her deep blue scales shimmered like cobalt glass in the torchlight. The gills of her long neck were pulsing like they always did when she was angry. Crystal stepped back and flickered her tail to examine the bite mark. She bared her teeth at Tsunami. Aren't you sweet, protecting a dragon who tried to kill you while you were still an egg? But luckily, you big dragons are there to save our lives, Tsunami said. And we sure appreciate it because now we get to hear about it all the time. She marched around to stand between Clay and Crystal. Clay winced. He hated hearing the story. He didn't understand it. He never wanted to hurt the other dragonets. So why had he attacked their eggs during hatching? Did he really have a killer monster inside him somewhere? The other minders, Webb and Dune, said he'd be ferocious when he hatched. They had to throw him in the river to protect the other eggs from him. Crystal wanted to find that monster and use it when he fought. But he was afraid if he ever did, he would hate himself. And so why would everyone else thinking about what he nearly done to his friends make him feel like all the fire had been sucked out of him? He didn't particularly want to be a violent, angry monster, even if Crystal thought that would be an improvement, but maybe that was the only way to make the prophecy come true. Maybe that monster was his destiny. All right, Crystal said dismissively. Finish anyway. I'm not another failure and your squirrel muddling. She snorted a small flame into the air, swept out of the cave. Clay flopped down on the floor as soon as her red tail had vanished from sight. It felt like every single one of his scales was stinging from the burns. She's going to be mean to you during your training tomorrow, he said to Tsunami. Oh no, the sea-winged dragonet gasped. Never seen Crystal be mean before. That would be so unexpected and out of character. Ow, Clay groaned. Don't make me laugh. I think my ribs are broken. Your ribs are not broken, said Tsunami, poking him in the side with her nose. Dragon bones are almost as hard as diamonds. You're fine. Get up and jump in the river. No, Clay buried his head under his wing. Too cold. Jump in the river was Tsunami's solution for everything. Bored, aching bones, red scale, brain overstuffed with the history of the war. Jump in the river. She certainly did not care that she was the only one who could breathe underwater, or that most dragon tribes hated getting wet. Clay didn't mind being wet, he couldn't stand being cold, and the underground river that flowed through their cave home was always freezing. Get in, Tsunami ordered. She seized his tail between her front talons and started dragging toward the river. You'll feel better. I will not, Clay shouted, clawing at the smooth stone floor. I'll feel colder. Stop it. Go away. He protested and went up in a cloud of bubbles as Tsunami dumped it in the ice water. Let me reread that. His protest went up in the cloud bubbles as Tsunami dumped it in the icy water. When he refused, she was floating beside him, ducking her head, splashing water over her scales like a beautiful overgrown fish. Clay felt like a wacky brown blob next to her. He splashed into the shallows and lay down on the submerged rock ledge with his head resting on the bank of the river. He wouldn't admit it, but the burns and aches did feel better in the water. The current helped wash away the smoky rock dust caught between his dry scales. Still too cold, though. Clay scratched at the rock below him. Why couldn't there be a little mud down here? Crystal would be sorry one day when I'm queen of the sea wings, Tsunami said, swimming up and down the narrow channel. I thought only Queen Zutter's sisters could challenge her for the throne, Clay said. Tsunami swam so fast he wished he had webs between his talons too, or gills, or a tail like her so powerful she could nearly empty the river with one big splash. Maybe the Sea Queen is my mother and I'm a lost princess, she said, like in the story. Why not, she said, if we can find a way out, why should we have to wait another 2 years? I'm ready to save the world now, aren't you? Clay wasn't sure he'd ever be ready to save the world. He figured out the Towns of Peace would tell him what they had to do. Only 3 guardian dragons, Crystal, Webs, and Dew, knew where the dragonettes were hidden, but there was a whole network of talents out there getting ready for the prophecy. Can't stop the war by ourselves, she said. We wouldn't know where to start. Tsunami flapped her wings in exasperation, showing him the gold droplets. We can too stop the war on our own, she said. That's the whole point of the prophecy. Maybe in 2 years, Clay said. Maybe by then I'll find my dangerous side. Maybe then I'll be ferocious. Fighter Crystal wants me to be. Maybe sooner, she said stubbornly. Just think about it, all right? Shifted his feet. All right, I'll think about it. At least the way he could stop arguing with her. Tsunami cocked her head. I hear dinner, the faint sound of display mooing out good up in the tunnel behind them. She poked Clay carefully. Racing to the hall, she whirled and pounded away without waiting for a response. Torches in the battle room seemed dimmer and cold. Water was sleeping under Clay's scales. He folded his wings and swept his tail through the debris of the smashed rock. Kalamum. Tsunami was crazy. The 5 dragons were ready to stop the war. They wouldn't even know how to survive on their own. Maybe Tsunami was brave, like a hero should be, but Sunny and Glory and Starfight, Clay, thought all the things that might hurt them and wished he could give them his own scales, claws, and teeth for extra protection. Besides, there was no way to escape the case. Towns of Peace had made sure of that. Still, part of him couldn't help wondering what it would be like to go home now instead of another 2 years down to the marshes, to the swamps, of the whole tribe of Mudwings looked like him and thought like him. Back to his parents, whoever they were. What if they could do it? What if the Dragonettes could escape and survive and save the world their own way? Chapter 2. Clay swept the bones of dinner into the river with his tail. The striped white shades bounced away in the current. Fires flickered around the edges of the great central cave, echoing space beyond overhead, dripping with stalactites like huge teeth. The cave dome was big enough for 6 full-grown dragons to fit across with their wings extended. The underground river flowed along one wall, muttering and gurgling as if it were plotting its own escape. Clay glanced at 2 small sleeping caves that opened on to the hall, currently empty, and wondered where the other dragonettes currently was cleaning up. Aha! Yelled a voice behind him. Clay threw his wings over his head. What did I do? He yelped. I'm sorry, it was an accident. Or if it's the extra cow Dune said. I could have had it because Webb would be out late, but I'm sorry. I can skip dinner tomorrow. A small sob poked his back between his wings. Calm down, silly son, he said. I wasn't hawing at you. Oh! Clay smoothed his crest and twisted around to look at her, the smallest and last batch of the dragonettes. Pile of lizard tail was disappearing into her mouth. She grinned at him. That was my fear something, she said. Did you like it? Wasn't it scary? Well, it was certainly surprising, he said. Lizards again? What's wrong with cows? Blah, too heavy, she said. You look all serious just thinking. He was glad Crystal and Dune couldn't read minds like the Nightwing's dragons. He hadn't been able to stop thinking about the idea of escape all through dinner. Clay lifted one of his wings and Sunny nestled in close to him. He could feel the warmth from her golden scales radiating along his side. Sunny was too small and the wrong color, tawny gold instead of sand pale like most sandwings. but she gave up her heart like the rest of her tribe. Dune says we should go study for an hour before bed. She said the others are in the study cave already. Dune, the maimed dragon who taught them several skills, was a sandwing, and so was Sunny. There was something not quite right about the littlest dragonette. Not only were her scales too golden, but her eyes were green instead of glittering black. Worst of all, her tail curled into an ordinary point, like the tails of most dragon tribes, instead of ending with a poisonous barb that was Sandwing's most dangerous weapon. As Crystal often said, Sunny was completely harmless. And what good was a harmless dragon but her egg fit the instructions in the prophecy, so she was their wing to stand. Whether the talons of peace liked it or not, of course there was no wings of rain in the prophecy at all. The dragonettes had all heard many times over about how Glory was a last-minute substitute for the broken Skywing egg. Crystal and Dune called her a mistake and growled at her a lot. Nobody knew whether the prophecy could still happen with the rain wings instead of a Skywing. But from what Clay knew Skywings, he was very glad they had Glory instead of another grumpy fire-breathing Crystal under the mountain. Besides, if anyone was likely to mess up the prophecy, it was him, not Glory or Sunny. Come on, Sunny said, flicking him with her tail. He followed her across the central cave. Twisting stone tunnels led off in all four directions. One to the battle area, one to the Guardian's cave, and one to the study room, and one to the outside world. It was blocked with the border too big for any of the dragonettes to move. Clay stopped and pushed against the rock with his shoulder as they went by. Yum tried to open it when the big dragons went around. Someday it would move when he did that. Maybe not a lot, even a tiny shiver to let him know that he was finally getting close to full ground. He felt big. He was constantly bumping into things and accidentally knocking something over with his tail or wings. Not today, he thought ruefully when the boulder didn't budge. Maybe tomorrow. He followed Sunny down the tunnel into the study room. His enormous feet and thin claws scraped along the stone floor. Even though he'd lived under the mountain his whole life, it still had to walk on bare rock. He was constantly stubbing his talons, and they always ached by the end of the day. Tsunami was sitting around the study cave, barking orders. Sunny and Clay sat down by the entrance, folding their wings back. A breath of air drifted down from the hole in the roof far overhead. The only window to the outside in any of the caves at night was without the distant hint stretched of sunlight in the room. Felt colder and more hollow. Clay stretched up and sniffled the darkness that had fallen on the other side of the hole. Thought it sounded like stars. A map of Pyrrha hung on the wall between his torches. Tsunami and Starflight loved staring at the map, trying to figure out where the hidden cave was. Starflight was pretty sure they were somewhere under the claws of the Clouds Mountain. Skywings prefer to live high among the peaks, so anything could happen in the deep caves below without being noticed. All this history is so confusing, Sunny murmured to Clay, swishing her tail back and forth. Why didn't the three sides just sit down and talk and end to the war? That would be great, Clay said, then we could stop studying it. Sunny giggled. Stop that, Tsunami said, bossily stamping her feet at them. No whispering. Pay attention. I'm assigning parts. This is not proper studying, Starflight pointed out. His black night wing scales made him nearly invisible in the stark shadows between the torches. So the few scrolls between his talons and began to neatly sort them into stacked triangles. Perhaps I should read to everyone instead. Dear Moons, anything but that. Glory said from the ledge above him, maybe later when we're trying to fall asleep. Her long delicate shout, glowing emerald green with displeasure, rested on her front claws. Ripples of reddish and blue shimmered across her scales, and tonight her tail was a swirl of vibrant purple. If it weren't for Glory, Clay thought, none of them would know how many colors there were in the world. He one declared that what it must be like in the rainforest where there was a whole tribe of dragons that beautiful. Shush, Tsunami scolded. Obviously I'd be the best queen, but let's make Sunny the queen since she's a real sandwing. She bustled over and pushed Sunny into the center of the cave. Well, sort of. Glory murmured under her breath. Sst. Starflight flickered her tail, and none of the dragonets ever talked about why Sunny didn't look like a regular sandwing. Clay guessed that her egg had been taken from the sand too early. Maybe sandwing eggs need to be in the sun and desert to keep them warm until hatching, or else they come out half-peaked and funny looking. Although personally thought Sunny looked just fine, Snobby tapped her talons on the cave floor studying her friends. Clay, you want to play the scavenger? That's hardly fair. Starflight pointed out he's twice Sunny's size. A real scavenger would be smaller than her. According to the scroll over here, it says that scavengers have no scales, no wings, and no tail, and they walk on two legs. Sounds very unstable to me. Bet they fall over all the time. They like treasure nearly as much as dragons do. The scroll scavengers attack lone dragons and steal. Oh my gosh, we know! Glory snapped. We were all here from the fascinating lectures from about them. Don't make me come down there and bite you, Starflight. I'd like to meet a real scavenger, Clay said. I'd rip off its head and eat it. He pounded his front talons on the stone below him. If it would taste better than the mouthfuls of feathers Kestrel keeps bringing us. Poor hungry Clay, Sunny teased. When we're free, we'll go find a scavenger nest and eat all of them. Snobby promised, nudging Clay with one wing. Sunny blinked at her. When we're free? Oops, Nami and Clay exchanged glances. Sunny was sweet and trusting and absolutely terrible at keeping secrets. I mean, after fulfilling the prophecy, of course, Nami said. Nami said. Clay be a scavenger here. Can this be your lousy swinker long tail in the yard and smash a stalagmite loose? Shards of rock flew across the cave, and the other dragons ducked. Clay hatted the sharp rock spear in his claws and grinned wickedly at Sunny. Don't actually hurt me, she said nervously. Of course you won't, Tsunami said. We're just acting it out. And the rest of us will be the princesses. I'll be Burn, Glory can be Blister, and Starflight will be Blaze. I had to be a princess last time too, Starflight observed. I'm not sure I like this game. He stretched his wings and scattered the silver scales underneath glittered like stars in the night skies. It's not a game, it's history, Tsunami said. And if we had any other friends, we could play differently, but there are 3 sand dragon princesses, so you had to be one, so stop complaining. Starflight shrugged and set it back into the shadows the way he always did, and he couldn't win a fight. All right, go ahead, Tsunami said, hopping onto the ledge next to Glory. Sunny said. She eyed Clay waringly. Right here I go, la 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 la, Queen Oasis of the Sandwings. I'm so very important, royal, and stuff. Tsunami said. Glory and Starflight hid their smiles. I've been queen for ages and ages, Sunny went on. She started across the cave floor. No one dared challenge me for my throne. I am the strongest Sandwing queen who ever lived. Don't forget the treasure, Tsunami hissed, pointing at a pile of loose rocks. Oh, right, Sunny said. It's probably because of all my treasure. I have so much treasure because I'm such an important queen. She swept the rocks towards her and gathered them between her talons. Did someone say treasure? Clay bellowed, leaping out from behind a large rock formation. Sunny yelped with fright. No, Tsunami called. You're not scared. Your Queen Oasis, the big bad queen of the sand dragons. We're right, Sunny said. What's all this tiny scavenger doing in the kingdom of sand? I'm not afraid of tiny scavengers. I shall go out there and eat him in one bite. Glory started giggling so hard she had to lie down and cover her face with her wings. Even Tsunami was making faces like she was trying to not laugh. Clay swung his stalagmite in the circle. Squeak, 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 he shouted. And other annoying scavenger noises. I'm here to steal the treasure away from a magnificent dragon. Not for me, you won't, Sunny said bristling. She stepped forward, spread her wings, and raised her tail threateningly without poisonous barb. Other sand wings. And we are going to leave off on page 20 and 21 because I am running out of time. And okay, See you guys.